P&R with Adam R. Welcome to 3P&R. I'm your host, Adam R. Joining me for this episode is Julie Fidler, true crime blogger. It's called the True Crime Times. Yes, Julie?
That is correct.
Excellent. What put you in the? We'll start with this. What put you in the interest of true crime?
It was just something that I was always into and interested in, and I've been writing since 2003, and I had been doing some pretty boring freelance work, and I just decided, I might as well try my hand at something that I enjoy and see if I can make money that way. And so far, so good.
Yeah, it's true crime is one of those things that when people read about it and learn about it, it's more heinous than what you would see in movies. People don't seem to understand how the depth of evil humans could actually put out there.
Oh yeah, some of it. There's some stories. It takes me a few days to start writing about it because it's so horrible. I have to wrap my mind around it a little bit. And hopefully, especially like in missing person cases, I'm always hoping that my blog will help in some way. But sometimes I kind of have to mentally prepare myself to start writing those stories.
Yeah, I would imagine a psychology behind it, especially when you're reading it. So I'm currently reading a book from another author involving a true crime, and I'm going to have him on eventually. And even in reading his book, it's disturbing what I'm learning, right? It's so hard to fathom this is real life.
Yeah, it's terrifying to think that people like that exist in the world that can bring so much pain and for no real logical reason.
Right, and they can't even call it heated passion. At some point, you're just rooted that way.
Yeah. And, I hear a lot these days about, the mental health crisis in the United States. And, I don't want to get off topic, but that sort of bothers me in a way because I feel like, you can chalk some of these crimes up to mental illness, but I think at some point it's just like, there has to be some sort of evil in the world to explain some of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some people take pleasure in other people's grief, right? I talk to a lot of homicide detectives on this show as well. I mean, I cover a lot of stuff, UFOs, ghosts, health and wellness, all that stuff. Fun stuff for the most part. But when I talk to the homicide detectives and Cloyd Steiger being one, and you hear about this serial killer this guy has in his custody, and the guy's a normal guy. Like she's chatting him up. They're shooting the shit like two regular people. And then they start discussing one of the victims that got away. And the guy goes from being like a normal guy to his voice changes, his posture changes. He's like the predator in him starts to reveal itself. And it lets you know that the root of evil is deep in there somewhere. Because otherwise, you wouldn't know this guy's a crazy guy. He was fun, having regular conversation, talking about cheeseburgers. And then in an instant, when he hears about that prey item that got away, completely changes who he is. Scares me.
Yeah. It's like, any sense of normalcy in their lives is just an act to cover for the evil that they're committing.
What are so let's talk about your blog and some of the stories you covered there. What are some of the more interesting ones that you've been read or you've wrote about anyhow?
I sort of feel like the Delphi murders are kind of my pet case, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That, of course, has been in the media everywhere. It's personal for me. When I was 14, I was assaulted by an adult man in a park. And so I just I have a heart for that case because I realized that I could have been Abby or Libby.
Right. And
I just can't even imagine the horror that they went through and that their families have gone through.
Yeah, I can imagine. Children, when you hear about, adults can at least fight back for the most part.
Right.
But children are defenseless. And that bothers me to my core deeply. I hate to say this. This sounds probably inhumane, but I think if you harm a child, you should just be put down, period.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
These aren't people that are going to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Remorseful?
Yeah. They're not going to change. This is who they are, and I don't think that they can control it always. So yeah, it's like, I hate to say it, but what really is their purpose on the planet?
Agreed. Like when I first read about or heard about the mass shooting in Texas, and you hear children at a Target, and I didn't shoot pool that day. I canceled my podcast. I was depressed. It was hard to hear. These are children.
Yeah. I mean, these crimes are horrible anytime, but just it's like what happens to a person to make them so angry and bitter that they take it out on innocent kids.
Indeed. It scares me, man. And I tell people this often, especially a friend of mine who drives. She drives like, the roads belong to her. And I'm like, you can't beep and act crazy with everyone, because you never know who you're beeping at. And if they're at that breaking point, you got to exercise some caution. People are unstable, period.
Very much so, yes. And that's actually something my husband yells at me about. He's Mr. Calm. I'm the one who has to remember that there's crazies out there. You know what I mean?
It's, and some of the people in history, like, I'll give you an example. Jeffrey Dahmer, looking at that guy, he doesn't look dangerous at all. To me, in my opinion, he looks frail, Yeah. And then you hear about what he did, and mind blowing,
Yeah.
Lets you know.
I know. And he looked like such a normal guy.
Yeah, but he looked like the guy that people would just walk by, not even glance at him twice, which is probably why someone said this to me. Predators wear better masks than other people.
Oh, yeah.
And that creeps me out.
Well, yeah. I mean, if rapists and murderers look like rapists and murderers, everybody would stay away from them. So
it's true.
It's the normal people you have to be afraid of.
Remember George Carlin, the comedian?
Yeah.
He, what was that he said? He goes, they're like, oh, you got to watch the quiet ones. He goes, well, while you're watching the quiet one, a loud one will fucking kill you.
Yeah, right. That's true. Got to look over your shoulder.
Yeah, when he defines the difference between crazy and psychotic, it was hysterical. But he's right, and you're right. A lot of people are right. It's these people that they're in everyday life. They look really normal people, very very benign. But there's a sinister, like another example, Ted Bundy. Right, that guy was charismatic. He was a good looking dude. I believe he was going to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
Broke out of jail multiple times, right? He outwitted police in a lot of cases. And how did he get caught? He got a traffic violation.
Yeah. Well, I think Ted Bundy, I think, is an interesting case. First of all, I don't understand why women find him so attractive. I can't get past the unibrow.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't understand that. And, they like to make him sound like he was this, genius person who could have taken on the world if only he weren't a serial killer. But if you look at his background, pretty much all he did was fail at things and start things he couldn't finish.
Right.
So, it really is a mask, because if you look just slightly beyond that mask, you see the true story.
Right. Yeah. And the big thing with him is, and he shares a common trait that Hitler had and other Napoleon, very charismatic. Utilize speech in a way like a con man, a mentalist, if you would, right?
Yeah, right.
Knew what to say. He could acclimate to the surroundings. He knew how to speak to people and what they wanted to hear. And sure, so he lured a lot of people in. You know what I mean? I mean, I say this about religion too a lot. Religion's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing, in fact, with a pretty decent positive message until you get a charismatic, self-serving person at the helm of it, and then before you know it, you're conquering other countries in the name of whatever religion that is.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. You can use religion as a great mask.
Indeed. So for your blog, because I'm going to dive more into it as we go. Okay. So you talked about the Delphi. Talk about some more of the cases you studied and some of the findings you came across.
Trying to think. The Brian Schaefer case. I thought that was very interesting. I'm actually going to log onto my blog here.
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah.
When you're ready, I learned something new about a true crime, a really popular true crime case. I've known about it my whole life. And only recently did I watch this documentary and I found some information that it's still blowing my mind that this is not at the helm of the limelight and people aren't examining this a little more closely, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Yeah, actually, you know what? like I was saying, Brian Schaefer, are you familiar with this case at all?
I'm not. I'm going to be getting more involved with true crime. In fact, I'm going to begin my true crime case love affair on your blog.
Uh-huh. Oh, awesome.
And
that's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I got to start somewhere. And I think, because I have this habit of watching documentaries, and I immerse myself in the documentaries, whether it be space, whether it be, I just learned about John DeLorean yesterday. So I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm big on documentaries myself.
Yeah. I like learning stuff. And, you know, maybe one day it'll have a game show where useless knowledge comes into play, because I'll do well.
Yep. From all the rabbit holes you go down.
Exactly.
Yep.
But yeah, pray tell.
So Brian Schaefer went missing and has never been found. And what makes this case so interesting is that he actually went missing in a bar, and cameras never picked him up when he was leaving, and he's never been seen or heard from again. And so nobody knows what happened for a while. There's this theory that he's buried somewhere within the building or in the walls or something. Of course, no one's ever been able to prove that, but it's just, it's a crazy situation. He was seen coming into the bar, and then everybody else left, and he never did.
Huh.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. So he goes into the bar, disappears. Mm-hmm. There's no trace of him leaving the bar.
Nope.
No
trace whatsoever.
Where's this bar located? What city?
This is in Columbus, Ohio.
So there's definitely basements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's got me thinking.
Yeah, it's a crazy case. He talked to his fiance just before 10 p.m. The night that he went missing, and Brian decided to go with a friend to do some bar hopping, and they met up with some more friends. And at the end of the night, the one friend offered to take Brian back to, you know what? Are we recording this?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go back?
No. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Just keep going.
Yeah. Just keep going. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Because I'm looking through my thing here, and I just I want to make sure I'm not saying, some bullshit here. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, they went bar hopping at another part of town, and then the one friend offered to drive Brian back to this bar, and they accepted the ride. And at 1:15 a.m., they were caught on camera going up the escalator to the second floor where the bar is located. And just before 2 a.m., the cameras caught Brian and two women who looked to be about college age.
Right. And
he says goodbye to the women and walks away back towards the bar, and that's the end.
Wow. And no trace of it. So what year is this?
This was, I believe this is 2006. Yes, 2006.
Oh, there's definitely cameras everywhere by that point.
Yeah.
That blows me away. Like, those are the cases that blow me away. So you're a bit of a sleuth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk in terms of what you think, right? Like, what are your, if you had to say, I personally believe this is what happened, what do you think it is?
There was one part of the building where there was, I believe, some construction going on. So really the only option, other than him being, dead somewhere in this building, is that he went out this exit. But the thing is, it wasn't, the area was so destroyed with construction, and there was, so much equipment and everything. It wasn't the kind of thing where he could just walk out and casually walk off to the sidewalk. I mean, there were, he would have fallen into a hole or something like that. And that, of course, was all checked, and he wasn't in there. But I don't believe there was a camera in the back, but no cameras in the area. And there were a ton of cameras in the area because this was a very popular area for, young people. No other cameras in the area picked him up leaving or, anything like that.
Wow. I'm going to have to look into that now.
Yeah. So my personal theory, I'm not sure. To me, I always go with the more logical explanation. And I think it's probably more likely that somehow he managed to get out that door in the back and not be seen, because I just can't imagine that somebody would be hidden within the walls of a building since 2006 and nobody would discover that.
I mean, he has no debt to like any, like, as far as they looked into, he doesn't gamble, right? Doesn't have any debt to like per se organized groups.
Nope.
Because a long time ago, in certain bars and places in Chicago and New York, you go inside, you're not coming out. They had you were gone.
Right.
They had they had measures that no one would see you. But this isn't a weird incident. Did they ever try to tie any, like, I don't know, foul play to friends or person?
The one friend they tried to tie it to, and he was not particularly cooperative with the investigation. Which is odd. There was another theory that he might have, this still doesn't explain where he went, but a theory that he committed suicide because he had recently lost his mother to cancer. But he was in a good spot with his girlfriend, and he was in medical school, and so there doesn't appear to be any reason why he would want to end his own life. And I don't know where he would have done it, and they certainly would have found him.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I mean, there's a show. I'm looking at it right now. It's on YouTube. Adventures with Purpose, where these guys go looking for, like missing people that drove their cars in the lakes, and so they use sonar.
Right.
But where he was, and I'm looking at the area, I don't think he drove into a lake.
No, it wasn't that kind of place.
I don't know. That's a bizarre story. So now you got my interest. I'm going to be looking that one up. Here, I'll give you one real quick. So I'm a kid, okay. Right? I'm dating a girl. Oh, actually, she wasn't there. I'm lying. She was out of town. I was hanging out with my neighbor, Angie. She lived across the street from Angie and Stacy. And this is the 90s. I'm a kid. And we start seeing the OJ chase on TV. And, I knew who OJ was. I didn't know, the caliber of celebrity he was, but I knew who he was because of not because of football either as a kid. I knew him from Naked Gun, period.
Right.
And so you hear about this case and how gruesome it is, right? And so years pass, decades pass, and in the back of everyone's mind, OJ definitely did it, right, for the most part. And then I watched this documentary. It's by Norman Prado. You're familiar with him?
No.
The documentary is titled "Who Really Killed Nicole?" And I'm going to try to get this guy on the podcast. I did try to reach out to him once, but I'm going to get him. What I learned on that documentary troubled me to my core. There was a known serial killer hanging out with them. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think to myself, like, all these years, why was this not discussed publicly? Why was this not? And then you find out, even from that documentary, how many things from the OJ case are sealed. And it's a tremendous amount of stuff.
Right.
Which makes me wonder, is this because law enforcement in an area, they blundered and they don't want to be known? And/or they eventually caught the serial killer in Florida. And so, but this guy has been viewed in photos with Nicole Brown Simpson, and OJ's been alleged to communicate with him through eyewitnesses. And then you think in the back of your mind, this is a serial killer. OJ's got money. Did he pay him to kill her?
Ooh, that's a very interesting take.
Right. I mean, it could very well be OJ was on site with him. He was supposed to be, I guess, maybe the getaway driver. Because how well, I don't know.
Right. Right.
When you look at the defense wounds of Ron Goldman, it seems that I feel like OJ would just overpower that guy. Considering how big OJ was at that time, I don't think that guy would have put up much of a fight. So when you look at the size of the serial killer, not nearly as big as OJ, and I'm not going to say that OJ knew he was a serial. I don't think anyone knew he was a serial killer at that point, but he became that. Right? There was a trail of bodies behind this guy, and so maybe OJ was a getaway guy, and then this guy gets into a scrap with Ron. And then Nicole comes out. I mean, I can only guess how that played out. But when you hear about a serial killer, and then you consider the size of OJ versus Ron, then you think about the defense wounds. It sounds like a smaller guy got involved with Ron, and maybe then OJ came to help out.
That's possible. And, I mean, the LAPD's never exactly been known for being open and honest. So,
right, especially when they make mistakes.
Maybe there are things that are buried. That is very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest you watch that documentary. You can find it on YouTube. Glenn Edward Rogers is this guy's name.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. That sounds fascinating.
When you see this documentary, and then you'll hear this, and typical serial killers, right? Not just psychopaths, but they'll always, like, they have to leverage themselves. Like, I think they were communicating with the people investigating. He's like, oh, well, what's in it for me type shit if I'm going to get information. But everything about that, watching that documentary completely changed the way I looked at that case. I did miss for years. I thought OJ did this, and if he did have an accomplice, maybe it's his son. I don't know. But when you hear this, oh my God, what a spin! And why is it not talked about publicly?
Yeah, well, it sounds like we are about the same age. So yeah, I sort of just always believed that OJ was guilty. And it's interesting years later to hear maybe there was more to the story we never got.
Right. I'm telling you, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have you back on the podcast more than once, right? Because you're going to be my true crime source. I'm going to utilize you.
But well, thank you. I look forward to that.
Indeed. And so when you watch that documentary, what's going to happen is you're going to be like, holy shit, why was this not in the newspapers? Like it's not like they found this out later. They knew then. And then I don't want to blow the whole thing because there's other people involved with this that, again, then and decades leading up to now, this is known and no one hears about it. It's not public, like, a knowing. I don't understand. I don't get it,
Wow.
Let me give you this. Let's say your friend, one of your good friends dies, was murdered. Mm-hmm. And the husband and her having these massive battles. And you're like, well, he could have did it. And then you find out that the husband's been hanging out and her hanging around some guy who's a serial killer. I mean, it's a, default to logic. That serial killer did it. The guy's used to this.
Yeah, I was going to say my money would be on him.
Yeah. I don't know why this is not more, I don't know, And then when you start reading about and I did fact check some of that documentary, a lot of the OJ case shit is sealed.
Yeah.
Can't read it. I don't get that.
And why after all these years?
Honestly, we're talking. Yeah. We're coming up on 30 years later.
Oh God, don't say that.
I hate to say it, but it's. I can understand the Kennedy assassination being sealed for whatever reason. I can understand them covering up Roswell. I can understand, the things involved with our military and some of the shy shit that took place between the Cold War stuff. But this, OJ. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a matter of national security. So what's the deal?
It's mind blowing.
Yeah, that is crazy. But now I have a new documentary to put on my list. So thank you for that.
No doubt. So let's dive into a few more of the cases on your blog. And so I want to get people familiar with your blog and how to get to it.
Well, one story that was, actually, you know what? Let's talk about Brandon Lawson first.
Sure.
Okay, so this one is a very, very well-known case. This guy, Brandon Lawson, he lived with his girlfriend and their children, and he had some drug issues in the past, but supposedly he was clean at that point. Shortly before he disappeared, he relapsed very briefly, okay, but it wasn't, a huge deal, and he was able to pull himself together. And so one night, he goes out and I'm sorry, I'm looking through. You have to forgive me because I have been kind of MIA from this blog for a while. I'm revamping it, but I lost my mother over the summer, and my husband's been suffering from cancer, so I kind of have to refresh my memory with some of these.
Oh yeah, take your time. Listen, we're here to have a conversation. I tell people this all the time with the podcast. I don't do a formal interview because there's a lot of it. You and I are sitting at a coffee shop, we're having coffee, we're having a conversation, and people get to eavesdrop.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so August 9th, and this was 2013, Brandon got home from work and he was exhausted, but he got into an argument with his girlfriend, or I think it might have been his fiance. Her name was Ladessa. And she was upset because he hadn't come home at all the previous night. And so she was concerned that maybe he was back on drugs. So Brandon took off out of the house and decided he was going to drive to his father's house, maybe about 3-4 miles away. And Latessa, in the meantime, was concerned about his state of mind and was, calling him and asking him to come home. And it was already after midnight by that point. And so Brandon agreed that he would go to his brother's house to spend the night so he wouldn't have to do any more driving. And let me see here.
About what year is this happening?
This is 2013.
Okay.
So he starts driving towards his brother's house. No, pardon me, his father's house. But he decided to take, they thought, maybe a longer route to clear his head.
Right.
But then, of course, he never showed up. And then all of a sudden, his truck ran out of gas. So he decided to try and go to this convenience store about 30 minutes away by foot. And he calls and asks his girlfriend to call his brother and ask him to bring a gas can and, some gas, or, bring him either a gas can or some gasoline. And everything seemed fine. And then all of a sudden, Brandon shouts, 3 expletives and says, somebody is chasing me out of town. And they figured out that he was referring to Mexicans. They didn't put the quote, I don't know what the racial slur was that he used, but so, his brother immediately thought, oh gosh, he's gotten back into drugs, and his drug of choice was meth. So it was pretty hardcore stuff that can change your behavior.
Right.
And, so his brother called the girlfriend, said, I don't have a gas can, leave one out on the porch for me. I'll come get it and take it to him. And for some odd reason, his girlfriend put her cell phone in her van to charge because it was running out of battery power. And I guess, I don't know if she didn't have a charger she could use in the house, but she put it in the truck and just fell asleep and forgot about it and assumed that, Brandon would be back in the morning. But when his brother and his girlfriend arrived at the location where Brandon was, he wasn't there. His truck wasn't there. There was no sign of him, except there was a police car parked on the side of the road. And so they thought maybe there was an accident, and somebody had phoned the police because the way the truck was parked, it looked like somebody abandoned it in a hurry. And there were phone calls back and forth between Brandon and his family. But at one point, the call became absolutely frantic. He had hung up on his brother, and Brandon called 911, and he was talking so fast that they had a hard time figuring out what he was saying, but they did figure out that he was able to say, yes, I'm in the middle of a field, push some guys over right here going towards Abilene on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one guy here. The guy's chasing something inaudible to the woods. Please hurry. And they said, do you need an ambulance or the cops? And he said, I need the cops. And then the connection went dead. And again, that was the last time that anyone ever heard from this guy. Then just a few months ago, he was found. And the thing that struck me as so odd, now they haven't said how he died, just that they found his remains. Okay. The thing that kind of shocked me was that this was such a big case, and just about every true crime blogger and, YouTuber, all those people have covered this ad nauseum. And it was one of those cases that it was one of the first ones that I really learned about. So I wanted to cover it. But there hasn't been, it seemed like it was out of sight, out of mind, almost like people had forgotten that he went missing. There was not much of a response when he was found, and I've tried to find more news to see if they figured out, what actually killed him, and I haven't been able to find anything. So it was sort of this big case covered in the media, covered by, the true crime community, and then he was found, and it was sort of like that was the end, and it was kind of this anticlimactic ending. It's a little frustrating. It's frustrating because I'm dying to know what actually took place, but maybe it's something they're never going to be able to really know.
Well, that's the importance of like bloggers and YouTubers, because the news media tends to keep fresh things in the news, right? And so missing people get ignored, and cold cases get ignored. That's why when I speak to the homicide detectives on the show, I try to revitalize their want to learn. Like you're going to be on an example. You're on this podcast today.
Right.
I promise after this podcast, I'm going to get back in this. I'm going to look more into stuff. You know what I mean? It's going to make you have a new relationship with the idea of true crime blogging. And that's a good thing, because something you write about or something we speak about or something that's heard somewhere might just catch the interest of one person. And it takes that one person to figure out that small part to a larger mystery. And it could help bring, peace to a family.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. There's a lot of people like you out there. They look at these crimes, they see it from a perspective. They don't have that trained mind of law enforcement or an agency where they can evaluate every scenario. They have the time to do it. There's no time constraint for you, right? No one's going to say, Julie, you're on overtime. Stop thinking about, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. And it's a pretty nice gig. I mean, I research stuff that is fascinating to me, and I get to write about it, and, hopefully that it gets the story out there a little more. I would like to focus a little bit more on, I did a few blogs about, crimes that were local for me here in Pennsylvania. And so I'd like to do more of some, unsolved crimes from around the country that people haven't heard about as much.
Right.
Because, those are, at some point, you can only write so much about these really well-known cases. And so I would, I would like to investigate some more lesser known cases, and hopefully, get that out in the public sphere a little bit more.
You have like an email where people, like, let's say there's a person in blah, 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 America. They're like, my relative was killed. Nothing ever came of it. Would you want to write about it? And they can give you the details, and you could publish that, right? And maybe help bring it to light.
Yeah. I'm, like I said, I've got a lot of family stuff going on right now.
Right.
So I have to be picky and choosy, but absolutely people can contact me. My email address is truecrimetimesblog@gmail.com. And it's actually on my blog. You can contact me directly.
And on that blog, I imagine there's a comment area where they could probably reach out.
Yeah, there's a contact option, and then you can leave comments as well.
Yeah, it's perfect because it's needed. Like I can tell you now, there's a case that I know about. Someone I was actually friends with lived here in the Oldsmar, Florida area, and we're talking 90s, and he was killed, and nothing came of that. Zero. And this guy, talking about a guy who had no connections to any kind of villainous people, nothing. He was just a regular person. Nothing came of it. And so some families would like their missing or their child's death or missing or whatever just to be revisited. Again, it takes one person out there to hear something that it sparks it's so weird that I can't remember where I read it now. I read about someone who saw something on a TV show. They figured something out. They called in, and the person was captured. And this was years ago. I can't recall it. Mm-hmm. But another one too, and in that same year of 2013, Amanda Berry. Remember the Amanda Berry case?
Oh yeah.
How mind blowing this girl. So I remember it too. I remember verbatim. Sylvia Brown was on a show, a talk show.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, with this girl's mother saying, "Listen, you need to let her go. She's passed on."
Yeah.
To a certainty, she said that. And the mother was like, okay, she was grieving. And then this girl gets out.
Right.
I mean, and what a case that was. What a mind blow. I mean, that guy had like basically a little prison.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he had his uh, own grandchildren living there, and slowly he gave everybody a little bit more freedom. But oh my God, they had to have been. People always say, like if somebody's abused or somebody's, a victim of like domestic assault, why don't you just leave? Because they had opportunities to do that, and anyone who's been abused or attacked can tell you that you're just trying to survive, and it's terrifying to think that in the process of trying to save yourself you might make it worse in the process.
Right. And yeah, because of psychology, this guy's probably playing massive psychological games with these people, right?
Oh sure.
I mean, sure. It's disturbing. Another case too that I never really dug more into. I just remember it from a long time ago, and I don't think anything ever came of it. Was the Benet Ramsey case?
Mm-hmm.
John, whatever. What do you think of that? I never got any answers from that ever.
I think personally that the guy who played the Santa Claus at the Christmas party on Christmas Eve,
right?
I think that he had something to do with it. I know a lot of people are still blaming her parents. And I'm in a ton of, Facebook true crime groups, and, I go on different pages and such. And that seems to be the overwhelming belief, is that the family had something to do with it. A lot of people look at her brother because of his interview with Dr. Phil and sort of how awkward that was.
Right.
A lot of people believe he did it and the parents covered up for him. And I don't believe that. I think, probably his personality has been shaped by the fact that he's been in the media his whole life, and he's had people pointing fingers at him. And I just think he's a little socially awkward. I don't believe the family had anything to do with it. I think it's time for people to let that go. Only her father and her brother are left, and they've been cleared, and I wish people would just kind of let them have their peace now. But that's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, for people when looking at, like we discussed this earlier about judging people as a killer, I saw a documentary, or like I don't know if it was a documentary, like a true crime episode, but there was this guy, it was on Netflix, and he killed his girlfriend and his children and hid their bodies. And when law enforcement went to his house with cameras,
mm-hmm.
he didn't look fazed at all. In fact, he played the part of concerned, but just looking at long story short, he was having an affair with someone else. He wanted to leave for his day. He didn't want the baggage of the girl and the children, which is a horrible thing to do. Right? Horrible.
Right.
And I watched this, and you see this guy's face and the way he's speaking to law enforcement, and he's on camera, and he's so like it's Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't like a serial killer. This isn't some guy who just, takes pleasure in murder. But it's like he mentally went somewhere else to alter himself.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets you know, you just can't tell sometimes, because genuinely, even this girl's family, they're like, people around him, like, no, it can't be him. But ultimately, some things tied in with law enforcement, and they end up finding the girl's body and coming to the conclusion he did it. And I remember watching that, and I was like, holy shit, man, you would just never know.
Well, I mean, there's this saying that not all psychopaths are murderers, but all murderers are psychopaths.
Right.
And psychopaths are, well, I believe they call them sociopaths now, but they're very, very good at being, superficially charming and coming across as somebody who, genuinely cares for you, upstanding citizen. But it was like we talked about earlier, it all comes down to that mask, and they have to find a way to fit in with society. And the only time they don't is when they can't, I don't know if they can't control themselves or whatever it is, and they hurt someone.
It's insane.
It is insane.
I mean, look, at some point, and I've evaluated this and read some studies on it, you have to be a bit of a psychopath to be the CEO of a company. You got to step on a lot of people on the way to the top of that ladder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they say there's a lot of doctors and surgeons and clergy even that, they're psychopathic and they're not, particularly dangerous to anyone, but you know, they don't have like the emotional connection. Like say you have a surgeon who's, you know, secretly a sociopath.
Right.
They say it helps them do their job because they don't have that emotional attachment or concern for their patients. So it just lets them focus on what they need to do and get it done. And they might not have the best bedside manner, I don't know, but you know, in those ways, it actually sort of helps them to be better at caring for people. It's really bizarre how it works.
I could agree with that. I could see that too. I'll tell you why. I worked in a hospital in radiology a long time ago, and I was on that, you know, multiple code teams. They teach you CPR, and if you're there, compressions to help the nurses and doctors, et cetera, et cetera. And a young lady was hit by a car, and she was brought to our hospital, and they're performing CPR, and you know the doctor called it. He was very like, I guess you get desensitized at some point, but I remember feeling like this guy here, man. This particular guy, I met a lot of physicians in ER. This one in particular caught my attention. Like, this guy's really cold, man. Has he seen that much? And he wasn't that old. It wasn't like he's been around forever. And he was explaining to one of the students why they were there. It's because they were one of the students was emotional. Why are we not continuing with compressions, et cetera, et cetera? And it seemed to me that he said, you know, well, you know why she's here. And it dawned on me at that moment, too. We're not a trauma center. So why did they bring her? And so I guess legally they bring these people here and you have to work on them until they expire. So, because there was really no hope for this person, else they would have flew him to a trauma center. But even in saying that and explaining it to the student, I was like, holy shit, this guy's stone cold.
Yeah.
And I used to wonder, you know, what if there's a serial killer working in a hospital and that's, so he doesn't go out and perform vile acts. He gets to work somewhere, he gets to see the lights go out with the same, I guess, gratification.
Well, from what I've read, because I think it's really fascinating. Hang on for 1 second.
Yep.
It's allergy season, let me tell you.
I'm right there with you. Trust me when I say that.
No, they supposedly, you know, the thing that like a sociopathic lawyer or doctor, their main goal is like prestige, praise. They want to be, you know, respected by others in their field. And so in a way, you kind of don't have to worry too much that if you have a psychopathic doctor, that he's going to do anything to hurt you, because they want to be the best in their field. They're not trying to make mistakes.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, on the same note, you got what was this? What was Beretta's name again?
Oh, shoot. I can picture him.
Yeah, same. I'm picturing.
Yeah, he killed his wife, Bonnie.
Yes.
Blake.
Yes.
Blake. What's his first name?
Robert Blake. Prime example. Yes. Now, I'm not saying this to actors that you're all psychopaths, but you kind of have to play a different person all the time and personalities, and we could see the stress that puts on actors. There's a lot of actors that are broke because of their parts, right?
Right.
But now you got a guy who kind of the same, wants praise. You know, again, the rise at the top. You have to lose some empathy in order to bypass the people on the way up. I get that. You know what I mean? It's a strive. Yeah. But that guy could look in the camera, and I believe this in my heart. He could shoot dead 6 people, look in the camera, say he didn't do it, and be convincing. He's an actor.
You know? Right, exactly.
So,
yeah, I
was always concerned about, like, this guy's a good actor. This isn't like a B or C level actor. This guy's been in some big parts. He knows how to act. He could. I used to watch actors and like, these people are forcing tears. They're crying. How the hell do they do that? Oh, it's a lot of work for me. You know?
Yeah. Like, I don't want to judge the whole Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing. Like, don't want to go there at all. But I will say, she was very good at crying without tears.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she had fake written all over her.
Yeah. I mean, she, you know, I was thinking to myself, you know, for somebody who's in these huge movies, she sure can't produce tears. I thought that was interesting.
I got to tell you, man, watching that case was kind of hard. That was really hard for me.
It was.
You know, I like Johnny Depp a lot. You know, he's been in a lot of movies I love. He's played some great characters. Like, there's a difference between being an actor and being a hell of a performer. And he is a performer in every way. Music, acting, just everything he does. He puts 100% in. And then when I hear about the shit she was doing, I'm like, wow, What?
Yeah.
I was like, get out
Yeah.
of here.
But I'm not convinced that either one of them, was innocent in
Of course
anything.
not. Yeah.
Um, it's not even that I don't believe anything happened as far as Johnny doing something to her.
Right.
But if she was trying to convince people that it was the horror that she made it out to be, she just did a really poor job of it.
Yeah, and I fault Johnny Depp for one thing, man. Listen, if I ever come home and the girl that's living with me defecates in the bed, I'm done. You know what I mean? It's over.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any redemption after that.
Oh my God. Well, I tried really hard not to care about the whole trial. And then once the thing about her pooping in the bed came out, forget it. I was hooked. I was invested.
Yeah, like what the hell?
I checked in every day. Yeah.
And then you see Johnny's face, and and again, I heard people say what I just said about other actors, right? Like, this guy's an actor. Of course, he's alligator tears, etc. But you can see genuinely he didn't want to look at her. Period.
Yeah.
He was disgusted about being there. He's disgusted about what happened. He was more disgusted discussing the past, because clearly, what a blow to his ego. What is to his manhood? People are like, wow, you're a victim. But
right.
he did well. I mean, for what it is, he did well. And I'm glad he emerged on top of that.
Well, now she's in the media telling people, I told the truth. He really beat me. And now they're saying there's a possibility he could sue her again if she doesn't stop.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, well, she's a, I don't know, psychopath, sociopath. She's something path. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something is not right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My hat's off to Johnny for tolerating it. It must have been, I don't know, some great love, because again, after the Defecation Act, it's over. It's done.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, and if he's like me, I'm one of these people. I become partial to somebody. I love my bed sheets. So,
yeah, exactly.
There's no replacing that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's move into some.
Anyway, yeah.
Let's move into one of the other cases you desire to speak about, and then we'll move into open talk after that.
Well, actually, have you heard of the Jody Husentrut case?
No, I got to get more. This is why I reached out to you. I'll tell you why. I've spoken to detectives. My peak interest to them in doing so is, learning more about serial killers, being kind of shocked at how many of them there were, and then, pro law enforcement, because I think law enforcement is taking a black eye for, I don't know. Look, there's bad people. We just said it. There's bad cops. There's bad doctors. There's bad nurses. A nurse was a serial killer. Remember that? She was poisoning her patients.
Yep.
I mean, so there's bad everything. And I'm pro law enforcement in a lot of ways. So, But that being said, I reached out to you. He's like, you're in true crime. I just started getting my bite into true crime. And I was like, what a better education to have someone that blogs about it.
Well, I'm glad I could be that person.
Well, I'm glad to have you. so tell me about this. Tell me about this one now.
Jody Husentrut, she was hold on one second. I want to get to this one too, because like I said, I want to make sure I'm giving the correct information here. She was a morning newscaster in Iowa. And she was, I believe, 25 years old, and was just like starting to move up. She had, dreams of being, on a major network someday. And it was common for her to miss her alarm because she was supposed to be in the studio by 4 a.m. And there was a producer that she worked with. She was in the habit of missing her alarm too. So they had, this thing worked out where if one of them hadn't shown up by a certain time, they would call and wake them up and make sure that they get into the studio. So she was running late, and the producer called and, said, "Hey, you're late. Give me 10 minutes and I'll be in." Well, she never showed up. And so, after about an hour, everybody was very concerned because she was not the kind of person, she was, like I said, she had big dreams. So she wasn't the kind of person who just wouldn't show up for work and not call. And so they called the police, had the police do a wellness check. And when they got to her parking lot, there was her car, and they found a hair dryer and her keys and some other items, a shoe, I believe, on the ground. And it was really obvious that she had been abducted. And that was, I believe, 1995. And there again, no one knows what happened to her. There are suspects in the case. There was a guy that she was friends with who was considerably older, and nobody can confirm it, but her friends say he wanted more of a relationship than she did. And when she went missing, he sort of thrust himself into the limelight in the media and was making all these statements about how much he cared for her and how wonderful she was. Like the police, the media didn't necessarily go looking for him. He went looking for the attention, which they thought was really strange. And he has sort of been the main person of interest through all of this, but he's been interviewed extensively, and now he's suffering from dementia. And so, if he did do it, they've probably lost, that
Right.
window where they're going to be able to get him to confess or even be able to question him. There were a number of other theories. There was a theory that she was investigating the shooting death of a friend and got involved in something she shouldn't have. All sorts of different things, but those were, the two main theories were that this friend of hers who had been shot, that she was looking into this as sort of an investigative reporter. But the people who worked with her said, no, that wasn't her thing. She wanted to be an anchor. She didn't want to be out there, actively investigating. But that's still, people still run with that theory. But the main theory is that this guy, John, if I could find his name, that would be great.
Imagine with dementia, like even if he did say, well, I did kill her, you couldn't even use that in court because he has dementia.
Right.
That's
John
nuts.
Van Sice, that's his name. Huh. And there had been at one point, I don't know if I remember all the details, but they thought possibly a man who was already in jail for murder had something to do with her disappearance, because he wrote a rap song saying her body was stiffin in Tiffin, and Tiffin is a nearby town from where she went missing. So they went out and investigated that, and I saw I don't think it was a documentary. I think it was like a limited series on like ID or Oxygen or something like that, where they went out to this silo that this person was rapping about, and they had cadaver dogs, and the dogs smelled remains, but they couldn't figure out if they were, human or animal or what they were. So they've started. There's a group called Help Find Jody, and they've been very active on Facebook. It's a really good page to check out. It'll tell you everything you need to know, and the information on who to contact if you have any information or anything like that. But it's just a really sad case because she was just starting her career and was on her way up, and all she did was go out to get in her car to go to work, and that was the end.
Yeah, that sounds like, from what I'm hearing, maybe that guy, John, obsession cases lead to that. Like, oh, wow, this is mine. Or if they do kill her, they're going to, like that, like I was talking about earlier, that dude that killed his girl and his kids.
Yeah.
I think he put him in it was in the middle of a field somewhere, a large, like, container or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's, so sadly, if a lot of time passes and they're buried either well or well hidden, it's, it's with the sands of time. But I'm going to look more into that.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating case. And she had apparently had gone to the police at one point and said that she thought somebody had been stalking her, and there's kind of like conflicting information because some places confirm that yes, that took place, and then at one point the police were denying that. So I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but that has been said. And at one point, she was also concerned because she was a runner and she was out running, and a pickup truck was following her, or not a pickup truck, excuse me, a van.
Right.
Um, and that van may have been seen in the apartment complex before she went missing, because there were witnesses who said they saw the strange van, and it was really weird because it was like 4:15 in the morning, and this van was just sitting there with its lights on, idling. But there again, that there's still a tie in there possibly with John Van Cise and the van. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting case, and it's not difficult to find out more about it. And it's I don't know, it was another one that kind of I took it to heart because of her age.
Yeah.
And living in a rural area, which is where I'm from, and just a heartbreaking case. It's really crazy how people can just fall off the face of the earth.
It's true.
And you wonder how that's even possible. It's like everybody has to go somewhere, and it's just a really frightening thought, I think.
It's scary. And I've used this analogy with other people. Let's say a lot of people would say things like, well, how could God control everything? And like, I personally am not a very religious person. I believe there's some power out there. But then that being said, if there's a power and a creator, an architect, if you will, and there's an ant farm it cares about, right? You're feeding your ants. You love your ants. You want them to live happy. But are you going to notice every ant, if one is injured, another's killed another? There's no way you're going to notice that. So that, to put it to terms of what you're speaking about, if a criminal is motivated and well calculated, and they dispatch someone, and they like their body, they hide them well, it's tough. It's tough. And then time is a factor, because imagine. So look back 20 years at some of the good times you had. You could almost not remember them, right? You know that they happened, right, and your brain has the data there, but the actual image could be distorted due to time. And so, right, and unfortunately, people are like, when time passes, they kind of lose interest. Where, the appeal of the OJ case and some of these other cases, because it's a celebrity and it's a mystery that resurfaces. Even for me, finding out that documentary, I was still shocked by it. But the average people, they don't get that kind of treatment. It's unfortunate. A lot of children go missing. A lot of people die mysteriously, and it's important and relevant for that month. And then as per news, that's why there's people like your blog and other YouTubers it's important that they're there to get the minds of people out there thinking. Because again, it takes that one person to put things together. But sadly, some of these cases, they just, it's between time and then a well-calculated predator, it's really tough to solve. It really is.
It is, but at the same time, I sort of feel like it's got to be, you sort of have to be a sociopath to try and murder someone at this point, because there's so much DNA evidence and there's cameras everywhere. And, it's like, if the technology doesn't exist today, give it 5 years. And it's a lot harder to do something like that and get away with it. But, the sad thing is, with DNA and everything, now this is helping to identify, past victims of various crimes, which is good. But in a lot of cases, it's so many years later that the people involved never really got justice or closure.
Yep, I agree. And, as advances our technology is currently, I was talking to some of the homicide detectives on the show, and I asked them about serial killers. We're not seeing like what there used to be, and it's because it's harder to get away with shit now. It really is. Like, I had this guy Jared on the show, and he has an invention. It's a vacuum that pulls up DNA better than anything else out there, right? And it helps.
Wow.
So the point I make is, to be a serial killer, you'd have to be, I don't know what, wealthy, well calculated. It's not like TV where they can just pull it off anymore.
Yeah. And in the past, think about it. You saw like so many serial killers in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
And it was so easy for them to get away with it because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, and these, police departments weren't communicating with each other. So, a murder in Northern California wouldn't be on the radar of a cop when there's a murder in Southern California.
Right.
But now, everybody talks, all the information's online. So yeah, I mean, the good news is it is getting harder, but it's certainly not impossible.
No, it's not impossible. Like there's some, especially in crimes of passion, like there's a lot of these cases where some, the wife or the guy or he cheated, whatever it is. And they're like, they'll plot your end with detail.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with detail. And I got to tell you, not to make it a sex thing, but I would be more frightened of females because they're well thought out.
Especially those of us that watch a lot of true crime, right?
Imagine a true crime, imagine a true crime buff female. You're dead, buddy. You cheat, you're disappearing.
Oh, that's a joke with my husband. I'm like, just remember, if you make me mad, I know how to bury a body.
Yeah, because I guess when it goes down past 6 feet, there's no dog that's going to sniff that, So
yeah. Right. I'm sitting here with Doritos going, oh, what an idiot. See, I definitely would have left my fingerprints there and he should have done this and done that. Yeah. So we get a good, we women get a good education from all the true crime shows. And what's interesting is that there have been studies that show that the reason women are so interested in true crime, because if you think about it, it's kind of strange since women tend to be the victims most often.
Right.
The reason that they are so into it is because they feel like it helps them prepare and maybe know what to do if they were in a similar situation.
It's true. Women could utilize. I've read some studies over the years that surprises me, or I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but women could utilize both sides of their brain simultaneously. Meaning, you could be angry, sad, happy, and dysfunctional at the same time. Men can't do that. We're mad, and then we get over it, and then we're happy, and then then we find a gray area. Women could be all of that shit at once.
Yeah. Affirmative.
So
I can confirm that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so on top of which, I read another study just 2 days ago that women have more brain activity than men in their sleep, so they have greater REM states.
We're thinking about things to get mad at you for while we're sleeping. Exactly.
It's crazy. Yeah. The only thing I dream, I'm not going to discuss my dreams. I don't get me committed fast, but
likewise,
it's pretty intense study to read that women have that the ability to utilize their brain at a greater capacity than men.
Yeah,
which makes sense because we're hormone driven, right? We testosterone plays an enormous role in our day-to-day thinking.
Right.
So, what good is logic when chemicals could be fired?
Exactly.
Yeah. And to your point about the cross communication of law enforcement, which is important, and especially in California, you look at the Zodiac killings. I should say killings. I personally believe there's more than one of those guys. I think all three of them came to a conclusion or either know one another or came to know about one another and utilize each other for the freedom of getting away with this. Because every guy they looked at looks really good for the part. And then the witnesses that spoke about it, they described people similar but different in small things like height and build, but relatively the same in every other way. And so when you think about that, and then they're using these complex cryptid messages that you would learn in the Navy, really. And then you have three guys that are Navy, former Navy.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Right. How do you not put that together? So
Yeah. There's always more out there that we don't, there's always possibilities that need to be explored and a lot of times aren't.
Agreed. So Julie, real quick, before we close out, tell everybody again about your blog, where they could find it. And then I'm going to speak to you in post.
All right. My blog is called The True Crime Times. It is on Medium. If you just Google the True Crime Times, it'll come up automatically right at the top. And if people want to reach out to me, my email address again is truecrimetimesblog@gmail.com, and there's a link there from my blog for people to reach out.
Awesome. Julie, it's been a pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to future ones. For those listening, I'm going to say good night to you, or good day, good or whatever it is for you. I'm going to say good something or another, and I'm going to talk to Julie in post.
All right. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
All right.